Welcome everyone to the Monday, September 27, 2021 regular school board meeting. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Guido?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mrs. Stone? Here.
Could everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We have one deletion, 5.1, presentation of nutrition compliance by Becky Nickel.
That's a deletion?
A deletion, yes.
She brought the cookies. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone? Aye. And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 1.4, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone? Aye. Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Moving on to section 2, recognition. Mr. Busker.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grant. At this time, I would like Coach Stacy Williams to come forward. We are quickly recognizing Coach Stacy Williams because she has to be out to coach a game here in a few minutes. But last week against Franklin, Coach Williams hit a milestone in her coaching career. She hit 200 wins, which is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations to you. A little known fact, Mrs. Williams is also a member of 3 Hall of Fames, I believe, Athletic Hall of Fame. She is obviously a member of the Monroe Athletic Hall of Fame, and you can see her plaque in the main hallway there, but she is also a member of the Butler County Athletic Hall of Fame, and I believe she's also a member of the Wilmington College Athletic Hall of Fame. So we have quite the celebrity in our midst, and in all seriousness, congratulations. That is a huge milestone, and the majority of those wins were here in Hornet Country, so we're very happy and proud of her for that. And we have a little thing to present her. Just a little certificate, and we have the game ball, and it's got a plaque that says, I'm going to drop it. Stacy Williams, Monroe High School, career coaching victory number 200, September 16th versus Franklin, which makes it
recognize 20 amazing sixth graders who truly are having a tremendous impact on our school community. Last April, students applied to become a Hornet Ambassador. This is a new student leadership program to help create and promote a positive experience and environment for every student at Monroe Elementary. We had about 70 students apply for these roles, and we selected the top 20 from that pool. Students were selected based on their attendance, their grades, previous discipline, and most importantly, their personality and leadership abilities. These students even came into school in early August for a training, for all-day training, and that was a great opportunity for me to really get to know them better and for them to have a team-building experience with their peers. I also learned a valuable lesson that day. It takes a lot of pizza to feed 26 graders. But these students serve in various roles, which include safety patrol, the welcome team, and the social media team. So our safety patrol team, they're in charge of, they're present and visible at arrival and dismissal, making sure that they're creating a safe environment for students to get to and from the buses at arrival and dismissal. Our welcome team, we have a Hornet Ambassador standing at every entrance of the building. So when students are arriving at school, they're going to see one of our welcome team Hornet Ambassadors, and they're going to greet them with a positive message to start the day off the right way. And they do the exact same thing when they leave in the afternoon. They tell them goodbye, hope you have a great night, see you tomorrow, something like that. And I've really been able to sit back and watch, and it is one of the coolest things you can see when you see your sixth graders interacting with other sixth graders all the way down to second grade. And the second graders, they look up to you guys. They think you guys are gods. So keep up the great work. And lastly, our social media team. These students, they're going to use our Instagram to capture all the great things that are happening in our classrooms. This has been a little slower to get off the ground, to no fault of their own. That's on me. So we're working on that, but be looking for a posting soon from us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Hornet Ambassadors for this school year. So when I call your name, please stand. Orlando Butler, Brianna Obey Aseri, Eli Long, Carly Watts, Elena Farrell, Brady Hudson, Sahil Agarwal, Nick Stevens, Lucy Carpenter, Jamie Brockman, Juliet Vendel, Jackson Farnham, Cameron McCormick, Lydia Price, Carson Webb, Ty Perkins, Olivia Swafford, Riley Terry, Abby Decker, and Gideon Treese. Please join me in recognizing these amazing students for their continued service and dedication this school year.
Going up. Yeah, go picture.
All the way down.
Especially in the Eagles jersey, man.
I'm not getting in this picture.
No, you're not.
You have to have a board member stand behind that.
You guys are all more than welcome to stay with the rest of the board meeting, but we will not blame you all if you could run to the door.
Good to see you.
Good, how are you? Good, good to see you.
Bye guys, thanks for being here. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Love the jersey. Go Bengals. Yeah. Did we get that on record accident? Dave's a little bitter today.
All right, moving on to section 3, discussion and comments from the board. Item 3.1, legislative, Mr. Leeds.
Gentlemen, I got a couple items. The legislators are mulling over the new mapping done by because of the census. And it's, as usual, there's some not very happy and some are happy with that. And they are staying away from any discussion on the maps in schools. So that's the reason not hearing anything on that. Got the governor's hand signed mandate, so we're happy about that. Nothing else being discussed. There is some discussion going on behind the scene on the monies that we got, the schools got this year, are getting, the extra monies that we're getting compared to last year. And so there's a little bit of discussion on what we're gonna do in 2 years. So hopefully we can interject some things out there that will help us maintain what we have or at least get some more. So that's starting. Other than that, nothing.
And just to echo on what you said, there's a bunch of rumors out there that schools are getting money, being paid money for making kids wear masks. That the money that you're talking about is not
No.
those funds. Those are the ESSER funds that we are getting to provide safety protocols for the kids.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Are you getting money?
It's not public, it's not public comment period. Gotcha.
Is that Mr. Leeds? That's it. 3.2, Butler Tech.
I have a legislative visit
know last time we had people addressing the crowd. So just state your name and your address, and then we will have you just address us and for 3 minutes.
You got it. Mr. Grant and Board, my name is Justin Vinnick Thomas. I'm your neighbor at 2042 Bridgewater Lane. I was in front of this committee a few weeks ago. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you again today. During the so-called emergency meeting, your latest overreach, we had constituents with the following positions: 10 against, 3 for, and 1 taking no side. You voted for the mandate anyway. Each of you stating that you disliked the rule, each of you stating you wholeheartedly supported the rule. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the definition of intellectual dishonesty. I urge you today to at least define the end date of that mandate. Lebanon has already taken this route. There's always a choice. And even when picking the least bad choice, you do not need to be unanimous. Your vote is given political cover to the position that you claim to oppose. The superintendent spoke about the Warren County project, and we were accepted into that pilot. While I felt the original terms were reasonable middle ground, the new terms are more intrusive, not less. You've broken 2 covenants with this community. You've brought contract tracing into our buildings. You've brought testing into our schools. You have violated your all people are important principle by segregating the very students that you claim to protect. The people who are sick, the ones with natural immunity, those who have exemptions from their doctor or their church, and worst apart, those who don't hear well or at all. To paraphrase Orwell's 1984, these actions are double plus on good. Many kids who are quarantined are alerted after the period of spread. When a child is quarantined, their siblings are not. When the parent is sick, the child isn't impacted. We have a teacher who is teaching despite their child's diagnosis in the same home. Clearly, the disease must be strategic. It only attacks one political party. It doesn't attack us at Walmart or at Kroger. It only goes front to back and not side to side. It only attacks the kids when they're learning, not on the playground, not in the parking areas, and not with their friends within our neighborhoods. According to the CDC, polled at 5 o'clock today, the trend was downward on the day that you took the vote. You do not get a victory lap in this. Your actions project that even you aren't buying what you're selling. None of you had masks except for the photo op. Students deserve more from you, and we expect more from you. Here's your supporting CDC table where you see that drop. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And you said 5.1 is no longer on the agenda, so we will move on to item 6, treasurer's business. Mrs. Cagle.
I'm asking the board to approve the minutes from the meeting on August 23rd, 2021.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Second. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Mrs. Cagle, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
Next, I'm offering the financial report for August 31st, 2021. The current balance in the general fund is $30.1 million, and the ending balance in all funds was $37.5 million. And as I mentioned, we're only 2 months into the fiscal year, so it's, again, a trend is not possible. But in September, by law, we're supposed to compare the amended certificate and the permanent appropriations, which is our budget. And so, in order to do that, I had to finalize some numbers to get to a starting point of where we think we are right now and where we'll be June 30th, because the appropriations that you will approve are the expenses that we'll spend
when we find out more, we'll share that with y'all.
Although you said that we would get a payment in October, we should get a payment from the foundation in October, first October, or the end of October, or what?
We were just told that we get payments twice a month, and we were told in October, we will know what the new amount will be for our school. And, when we saw it on a spreadsheet, it was like, a little more. But until I see it, but it's twice a month, so it's gonna be, and I don't know if they're gonna, I don't know how they're gonna pay us. I mean, in the end, it's supposed to be a certain amount, but, we'll find out.
Anything else? All right. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. All right, Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.3.
Okay, I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund report for August 31st, 2021.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. All right.
Okay, the current balance in the bond fund is $3.6 million. There were no transactions during the month of August.
Mr. Guido?
Everything where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Very good. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.4.
I'm asking the board to approve the schedule of technology services from SWOCA for fiscal year 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido.
Well, the total of this is $90,662, and it's for our technology services, and you've already approved the voice over, the telephone services, but this expense has remained fairly constant, so,
It says it's actually $10,000 less than it was
yeah,
in fiscal year
Yes.
2017.
yes,
Okay.
because, of a data line that was installed.
Okay. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.5.
Next, I'm asking you all to approve the MOU with SWOCA, Butler Tech, Lakota, and PCs for People for the broadband project that will provide internet to students in our trailer parks.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Guido.
Okay?
Any questions?
Just to verify, like, where the funding came from, I know we were awarded the money, but
Wait, say that again?
where's the funding from?
Okay,
We were awarded
yes,
just I think that's
yes.
a
We were
positive. should-
awarded, yes, it's really a good thing. We were awarded $266,000 from Broadband Ohio. And that, we're kind of a pilot project where a tower is installed at a certain location. It's going to be on Butler Tech's property. And it's going to provide internet services through hotspots in individual homes. And I think other people in the state will look at this to see if it's a good idea and how it works, and if it's, so we're kind of it's nice to be a pilot, and we're all working together on it, and I think we'll see the outcome of it. We'll report back.
And I don't mean to sound snarky or ignorant, but is there a kind of a guarantee that they're saying, like, if we put the like, this is there, that definitely reaches the target areas that we've struggled in for kids that haven't been served?
Well, it doesn't reach all the target areas. It reaches some homes, and they have a map of which ones it will reach. And I don't know, I don't know why it won't.
Can I share?
Yes, please.
So this is phase one of the broadband release. It is targeted right now for those specific areas, Rochester, or I forget the other. And the antennas are actually going up now, and the initial testing has already started on that, like very beginning of it. But the goal is that if this is successful, is to actually have the broadband throughout Butler County or wherever they will allow the broadband to go out further. So, I mean, I think that the hope is that this test pilot would catch on and expand through Butler County, go to all the other counties, maybe statewide, and then eventually national. So this really is a project that will be watched very closely. And that was my initial question at the beginning is, does that just mean we're going to be providing free broadband Wi-Fi to every home in the county or whatever? It is very limited on what they're able to use, and it's only for educational purposes. So can't be connected to PlayStation and doing that. So
Which site is the tower going on?
the public safety building is the one, and then there is a second one going on at the main campus at D. Russell Lee.
Okay.
And so they'll, I guess, direct them, and that's what they're trying to figure is that direction.
Okay.
Did you get help finally, or are you still doing most of that yourself?
I'm working with the state on it. I'm getting help. I think they're relaxing the rules a little bit too. So that makes it a little bit easier to not have to jump through hoops. And so I'm doing better. Thank you for asking. But it is a little more labor intensive because you've got these little hot spots that go in people's homes and they have to come and get them. And then we have to turn them off if people move away. It's a little different than internet at home. But, so we'll see how. I'm looking at Tony over there. Because we're gonna be coordinating that with Lakota, and we'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
Right direction.
Any other questions?
No.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.6.
And next, I'm asking you to approve a 5-year contract for digital LCD signage with Nevco Sports Marketing.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Okay. Okay, that will establish LCD signage in our gyms, our two gyms. And our athletic department will receive 70% of the revenue once it gets to a threshold of 13,000 in sales. And the nice thing about that scrolling video, then you could sell a lot. It's just not, static. So I think we're hoping it'll add revenue to our athletics.
Good.
Okay, now, straighten me out on this thing. Who goes out and sells the advertisement?
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much advertisement money do we expect to get in? If they're going to sell it, what's the goal?
We don't, I
don't have
can't
the
answer
number
that.
off the top of my head, but they
I can't.
think that we should start receiving profits year 2 to pay for all the new signage, and one of them's a video monitor that will go installed so you can have multiple advertisements, and it'll definitely generate more. The previous company wouldn't go higher than, I believe, was it 50/50,
50/50.
Jesse? Or maybe 60?
Slam dunk, the one that
Yeah.
currently has been 70/30. When I started here to go for day, it was 50/50.
50/50, yeah.
Wasn't it side effects?
Side effect.
Yeah.
And I was not a fan of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're on our nose.
Big part of it.
And the end of this contract lines up with the end of the football stadium advertisements.
So the second year, we should see some money
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
That's
hoping.
their estimate, yeah.
Okay.
We're hoping.
Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.7.
I'm asking the board to approve a new fund, 200-9205, to account for the environmental club receipts and expenses.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
This year? New group this year?
What?
Is it
Yes.
a new group this year?
Yep.
It's a new group this year, and we have,
The high school?
yeah, it's in the high school. Yeah, sorry.
Are they using the pond, I hope? That's nice out there.
It's, Jessica Thornton is heading that up. Yeah, and she's got a lot of activities planned, and they're already getting going on it, so I think it'll be good.
Good. Mrs. Kayal, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.8.
Next, I'm asking the board to approve the amended certificate of estimated resources for 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Guido.
And as I may have mentioned, that I will file a I will revise this report and file it again with you all, or get approval from you all as our revenue changes throughout the year, but I'm sure it's going to change based on what I put together this time.
Okay. Any questions? Mrs. Kayal, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.9.
I'm asking the board to approve the permanent appropriations for FY 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido.
Oh, okay. And also, this is it is a big report because you have to report on all of our funds, not just the general fund, but we're mostly concerned about the general fund. So if you look at it, you have to pay attention to all the funds. But, okay.
Any questions? Mrs. Kayal, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Cahall.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Moving on to Section 7, Superintendent's Update. Mr. Buskirk.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. I want to start, got a few items tonight. Start by talking about it is homecoming week, which is exciting around here. The kids are pretty excited. All week is Spirit Week for the kids in the buildings. There's a different theme each day. Today was Team Day. See that there, Mr. Grant? So everybody wore their team apparel today. And Thursday is the big parade. The only difference this year is that I believe a few of the teams have decided to walk instead of ride on the floats. But they'll all be participating. And I think in the past there has been a bonfire at the end. There is not a bonfire, but everything else with the parade is on. Friday will be a Hornet walk, followed by the homecoming football game against Franklin, and then the dance Saturday. I think I spoke last month about the changes to the homecoming dance. We'll be at the stadium. Kids are pretty excited about it. Right now, the weather looks great.
Fantastic.
Looks really nice for it. A number of other school districts have had their homecoming dances outside of the stadium, and it's been very successful, very well received. So, the other thing I wanted to share, two other things. The next thing is you'll see when we get to personnel business, we're recommending some additional help in our EL program. That's for our English language learners, English as a second language. The numbers of students in that area is continuing to grow, and the staff in those areas are, to be honest, we're pretty understaffed. So if you look at the additional personnel that we're suggesting, honestly, that's kind of a Band-Aid. I don't think it's enough, but this time of year you are not going to find additional help. Jesse has done a great job working with the administrative team to scrounge and find some people, some qualified people to help in that area. And Nancy is really going to, between now and January, February, do a study of numbers of kids in comparison to other districts of where we stand staffing-wise, so we can properly staff that department and look for qualified staff starting January, February, when they'll be available. This time of year, you're not going to find any TESOL certified teachers. So I just wanted to let you know there are some paraprofessionals that we have on the list, and a teacher that's willing to work, I think, 17 hours in that per week. So again, like I said, that's a Band-Aid for now, and we are using ESSER funds for those positions, but that population is not going away. So that's something we will need to look a few years down the road to possibly make those permanent positions. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the pilot program that we've been shared and talked about. I put a lot of information, Trent, if you could put that up there for me. I shared a lot of information at the end of last week about the pilot program that we are involved in with a number of other schools. If you want to go to the next slide there. There are a number of all the Warren County schools and Monroe from Butler County and Clinton Massey from Clinton County. Both us and Clinton Massey do have, part of our districts do dip into Warren County, so I did everything I could to get us in there because I do think this is a good thing for kids. So basically what this program is, I'm going to summarize it, give you a couple scenarios about how it would happen, and at the end, if you guys have any questions about anything. Again, I did send out a lot of information about this. So the purpose of this program, if you could go to the next one, Trent, is to keep healthy kids in school, and if you're sick, make sure that they are home and have time to get better. Our goal all along has been to keep kids in school, and it has been a struggle, and I think I shared that the last time since really the onset of this. At the beginning, everybody was sent home 2 years ago in March, and then even at the beginning of the last year, it was a struggle. People adjusted, things changed, we continue to adjust, but it's been a struggle throughout. So this provides an alternate to the at-home quarantine. It allows kids that are a direct contact to continue to be in school, and there are obviously there are some guidelines that they must follow to do that to stay in school. And this isn't something that Ohio is just trying out of the blue. There are 6 other states that are doing very similar programs. I believe the UK has been doing very similar with all of their schools for quite some time. So if you go to the next one, Trent. Basically, if a person was at school and we found out that they tested positive, what they do is they figure out who is the direct contacts. And those are the kids that we have been sending home that had to be quarantined by the Butler County Health Department. They have to stay home for those 10 days, 7 if they come back after a negative test. And that is not a good situation, having kids at home. I've talked about this at just about every board meeting. Our kids need to be in school. So the alternative to this is, if you go to the next one, anybody who is a direct contact, which that's just kind of the definition of it, of what a direct contact is. If you go to the next one, to stay in school, you have to go through a protocol. One of it is to wear a mask during that time period. You can still come to school, still be in all your classes. You just have to wear the mask during that time, and then you have to have a negative test twice during that time period. So as long as you test negative and you wear that mask, you can still continue to be in school. You're not home, which is a big step in the right direction about keeping our kids here in school. There are some things about it that I'm not crazy about, but this is just the way the rules are right now, that if you are in this quarantine protocol, you have to have lunch in a separate space. So, for example, the 7-12 kids, they already have kids that eat the seniors eat in the gym right now because of spacing in our cafeteria. They're going to open the other side of the bleachers up. Any kid that wants to that is in this program sit on that other side so they can spread out, be 6 feet apart. Because obviously you cannot wear a mask during lunch, so they want you to be 6 feet apart during lunchtime. This one I'm really not crazy about, but but it is where we are right now. No extracurricular activities during this period. So if you are quarantined, before you weren't allowed to come to school and you were not allowed to participate in extracurricular activities. At least we got them where they can come to school. I am going to share, it has nothing to do with safety, Ohio Department of Health said. It has to do with right now an unfair advantage. So for example, if Monroe was playing Franklin this weekend and Elijah Jackson was a direct contact and the Franklin star player was a direct contact, Elijah would be able to play, Franklin's wouldn't. That would be an unfair advantage. So for now, that's what their rule is. So I understand the importance of extracurricular activities and having kids involved in those things, but again, that's their rules for now. So if somebody, obviously during this, if they test positive, they can't continue to stay at school. They have to go home and follow the isolation protocols. Or if they start to have symptoms, or simply if they're not going to wear their mask, then they have to do the traditional quarantine. Again, testing twice. You're really good at that, Trent. You're anticipating. That's pretty good. Testing twice during this, there is a choice because we have, what happens if a kid is identified, we're going to give them a pack of this. It's 2 take-home tests, it's the parent permission slip, and it's a pack of masks because they want the surgical masks, these, which are really just the disposable paper masks. So we will give those to the students. If you're not comfortable doing it at home, or you prefer to have the school nurse do that, that is an option as well. So we just wanted to, because there is a telehealth component to the take-home test, you have to kind of get on it and do it online. One, it can be kind of cumbersome, and two, not everybody has access to do that at home. So we want to give everybody equal access to it. So that's what the next one talks about there. The 2 options. I do want to thank the Warren County Commissioners. When this started, our school nurses have been through a lot in the last couple school years. And if we were to say, everything you're doing already, by the way, you're going to have to do this, and there's a big data collection piece that the state of Ohio wants to do with it, they might just walk out. So we said, this is important, we want our kids in school, but we don't know how we're going to staff this. And the Warren County Commissioners stepped up and they paid for a nurse to come in, and she's helping with all the contacting the parents, their direct contacts, talking to them about answering questions about the program, and collecting the data, passing things out. She is basically running this program. And it was at no cost to the district, the Warren County Commissioners. So when they said they were going to provide a nurse, I got a little nervous because, again, Monroe only has a very small portion of the district in Warren County. And when I asked the question, they said, do you have any students that live in Warren County? And I said, yes. And they said, then you're good. So I thought that was great. They also provided one to Clinton County as well. So after they go through this protocol, as long as they test negative those 2 times, they've done everything they're supposed to on day 8, just as if you would stay home, you can go back to, it says default to the school masking policy, which I'll go through here in a second. So it is really, it's a much better, it's not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction. I've had a lot of questions. Well, I really like that it's an option, but I don't really like these components of it. We're not in a negotiation phase. That is what they shared with, we've been negotiating and trying to get things, but that's why it's taken 3 weeks, because we've been back and forth with the Ohio Department of Health. This is what they approved, and this is where it is for now. This is a step, in my opinion, it's a step towards, if you're sick, stay home. If you're healthy, come to school. And it's a baby step in that direction, but hopefully we get there soon. With this program overall in the state, and I believe in the country, I'm more interested just in locally in the state, our numbers have dropped, which is a great sign. I talked about that a couple board meetings ago, that they said the Delta variant it comes in and spreads like wildfire, and there's lots and lots of cases, and then there's a steep drop. I don't know how steep it is, but they are definitely coming down. I've shared data, I believe, with you that our numbers have decreased. And so if you want to go to the next one, this is the rollout of what we're doing with the pilot program. Actually, tomorrow is the first day. The mask requirement is in place for everyone, and we'll continue it for the rest of this week. Starting next week, we'll start the pilot 7/12. Starting next week, we will open up the pilot program for all students in the district, and we will return to the masking optional, strongly recommended for kids 7/12, and then the following week continue, and again go back to strongly recommended but masks optional starting Monday, October 11th. So it's kind of a phase out. There's multiple reasons for why I did that. One, our numbers are so much better just with the overall, I shared this numerous times, with the way the guidelines that are in place, it is hard to keep the kids in school. This pilot program is only for if you are a direct contact in a school setting. So if Tim and I are hanging out outside of school and he becomes positive and I've been with him, and so I am in quarantine because it was not in a school setting, at this time, I'm not eligible for this. So, again, I don't want our numbers to grow back. I'll share on September 1st when we decided to have the meeting to talk about putting masks requirement in place. That day, we had 296 kids that were not in school that were either quarantined or were positive. Today, we had 45. So just, again, I'm not going to talk about the effectiveness of masks or all that, but with the current guidelines, it's pretty obvious that having the kids in masks has gotten our numbers under control, so we can phase this in and hopefully keep them there or even get them lower, which is our goal. We want every kid in school. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I do want to say that the extracurricular piece, again, it's something that I'm not crazy about, but it is where it is for now. Hopefully it's a short period where again, I shared this last time, I'm not going to put a time frame on things because the Ohio Department of Health shares something and then it doesn't come about that quickly. So they said that if we do this for 3 weeks, they're going to try to start opening up to other districts in the state of Ohio. So maybe if it's open to everybody, then they'll take that extracurricular restriction. I did not share this at the beginning, and I meant to. This is completely optional. No one is forced to do this. So if you are very against testing your children, if you don't want to be involved in this, it is absolutely fine. This is just we wanted to give another option for families. And so this is a second option where if you want to keep your kid in school, it's obvious keeping kids in school during the school day is the most important thing. That's where they're getting the best education. That's where they have the most interaction with their teachers. We need to have them here in school. But in addition to that, that's a huge if you have younger children, that is such a huge hardship on you as a parent. If you're a working parent and your second grader gets sent home for 8 to 10 days. So again, this is another option for families. So we hope it goes well. I'm confident that we're going to do everything we can to make it go well, and it's definitely a step in the right direction. Do you guys have any questions for me about it?
I have one. If in regards to testing,
Yes.
if someone wants to go see their own primary care physician and get a test that way, is that a viable option under this program?
Not right now. I don't understand why, but I do understand why. They want it to be a controlled study for their data, so when they open it up
To the rest of the school,
yes,
they have,
yes.
it's consistent.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same test, whether it's at home or whether it's, they want. when they're collecting data, that's why they want it. At least that's what their explanation, which sounds understandable.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even think about the part that you mentioned about interscholastics, with it being one school not being able to, especially with playoffs coming up, that could be a big difference, so I'm glad that.
So, again, when I share this, I don't, I have 2 daughters that are in school, and luckily they are at the age that they were able to get vaccinated. So, again, if you had your vaccine, none of this applies to you because of the current guidelines. If you have your vaccine, you don't get it. But if I had a student younger than that, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would, I think I would have them go through this protocol because I do want them in school. But it is a hassle, and I understand it. For every family, it's different. Every family has a choice. So they did say, I did hear recently that the vaccination, they believe, is going to be opened up to ages 5 and older in November-ish. So when that is around, hopefully everybody has your choice. You can get a vaccine if you want it, and hopefully we can go back to some of those.
Any other questions?
How is the mass timeline being communicated? Has that already been presented?
Yeah,
to parents?
I shared that on Friday.
Okay.
I sent it out. It's all of this information is on, if you go back, it's all on the website. We added a tab there on the main page that's got all these documents, got a video. I don't know why, Trent, it's frozen with that horrible expression on my face. I don't know if you did that on purpose.
I noticed that.
But that video, it's about 6-7 minutes, and I go through all of this information again. And again, I'm always available for questions if people. There will be scenarios that come up, and I will not have an answer, and we'll have to, contact the health departments and figure out what to do. So
How often does the Warren County, whoever put this together, are they going to meet a specific time frame, or?
We meet weekly. They are collecting, that's in addition to just the normal protocols that everybody has to go through. They have 3 separate spreadsheets of data that they're collecting and submitting weekly, so they can get all that data collected and look at things. Again, they shared that hopefully we meet as a group weekly, if not more than weekly. Like last week, I think we met about 4 times, but as we were preparing for this week. But the data's sent in weekly. We meet weekly. The superintendent at Mason is in constant communication with the Ohio Department of Health. So it's definitely a work in progress. But like I said, it's not perfect, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you for the update, Robert. All right. Moving on to Section 8, Superintendent's Personnel Business. Item 8.1.
That is the, I left my glasses. That is the, it's the part-time EL teacher that I
Yes.
shared about earlier. We really need a full-time, but at this time of the year, all we could get was someone who was willing to work about 17 hours a week. So she's going to help. And then later in the agenda, you'll see some paraprofessionals to help as well.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. I got you, Robert. Item 8.2, resignations.
I can see the time. And the previous one, I shared again, but it is being paid for out of
ESSER funds.
just next, a couple resignations for supplementals.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.3.
So 8.1 was the approval of all the positions, and then this is the actual people that are coming in. First one is just the teacher, and then the next two are the paraprofessionals, correct?
Well, I think, oh, excuse me,
Yes.
I think it's just, we don't have the paras
Oh, the paras
employed
are
yet,
on
it's
the
just the
different-
teacher
I'm sorry.
for
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
just for now.
Temporary EL.
Yep.
Okay. May I have a motion for 8.3?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Just it says for 15 hours a week, but then in the title it says 17 hours a week, so I'm just.
It's supposed to be
Okay.
17.
When Nancy came to me and told me they're
Oh, I said,
inconsistent.
it says 15 here.
In
Oh,
which,
my
and I
imagination.
changed it this
Okay.
morning, or what?
Sorry, I had
Nancy
the
goes,
paper
this is
copy."
confusing, it's no more, not to exceed 17.
Okay.
Sorry,
And I see that this is also paid with ESSER 3 funds,
yes.
okay?
But that'll have to be budgeted into 3 years from now. We can't go back. You're going to need more, right? I mean,
We'll
that's.
probably need
Right.
more than that. Again, that's why I
Right.
said we met as a cabinet, and we said we have to really look at our population and compare what other districts are doing, because it's pretty obvious we're understaffed, but instead of just throwing people at it, we've got some temporary help now. We really need to figure out exactly what we need so we can come back with a valid recommendation.
And just being transparent, going into negotiations, it's important for staff and both sides to understand, okay, we have some positions here, they need to stay, but the money will be gone for those, so
Yeah,
I think,
Yep.
I get that on the radar.
exactly.
And maybe, just maybe in 3 years, when the ESSER funds maybe will be uncapped, glass half full.
Y'all get that
We can
done.
dream.
I will come back and throw y'all a party. That would be pretty amazing for Monroe.
That would be amazing.
Monroe would all throw you a party.
Any other questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.4.
Just a long-term substitute for, again, that is a reading support, again, that is being paid.
It's,
Is that a-
it's really out of 516, it's really out of CCIP. I should have put that on there. All right.
May I have a motion, please?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And, hold on. There we go. Item 8.5.
Hiring some substitutes. Mr. Catanzaro, along with the administrative team, has worked magic because substitutes are few and far between, and this is a list of a number of subs for our classified staff, which is really great. So we have, people are out, and we need people in those positions. So he has really rattled the trees, so to speak, and he's come up with some names. So that is very great work on his part.
Do you know anyone that wants to work 5 days a week? This is,
Yes, yes. In any area, any area.
Whatever it is.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.6.
This is just athletic gate workers.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions about the gate workers?
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm
Mrs.
out of
Stone.
order. Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.7.
This is for employment of some intervention specialist help with the students that are on the field.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr.
Leeds.
Leeds,
Stone.
and then Mrs. Stone. May I have any questions?
Is that, by any chance paid out of the ESSER fund or anything?
Yes, it is.
I wondered if
ESSER
it's
3.
not mentioned there.
Yes, it's not mentioned, but it
Okay.
is.
Okay. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 8.8,
This is just some extracurricular contracts, supplementals.
may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 8.9.
This is just the wellness coordinator supplemental. This is not a new position, it's just ambulance paid for through a wellness grant.
May I have a motion?
So moved?
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And moving on to Section 9, Superintendent's Other Business.
First section 9.1 is donations, a number of very generous donations from various people and organizations throughout the community.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Thank you for the donation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 9.2.
This I shared with you guys, all of you, I believe last week, about our substitute rates. Our substitute rates have not been updated, looks like for about 8 years. If you look at our sub rates compared to other area districts, we were at the very bottom. There might have been one district that was lower than us.
Yeah.
And as we share monthly, substitutes are impossible to come by. This adjustment, we looked at where we are in the county and in the area. This will make us a lot more competitive. Still, we won't be the highest, but we'll be in the upper half, which is where we need to be to attract subs. It's still a lot less than what we do when we have to pay teachers to do the supplemental, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's their hourly rate. Yeah. And just with inflation and hourly rates going up everywhere, people go to Dunkin' Donuts to make more than they would subbing for a day here. So we're trying to make it as attractive as possible. Good people, it's a good position to be in.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 9.3.
It's a contract with Warren County ESC for a interpreter, social communication classroom. It's something that we have to provide for that student, and we're happy to. They are expensive, but we'll file a catastrophic report to get some of those funds back. I don't know what the percentage is. Do you know, Holly?
Well, they'll never tell you till you get it. But this is out of Title 6B, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I have a motion?
So moved?
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
I guess the only question I have is, okay, we have the two students and we have the interpreters and everything. If those two students move or something, what do? We just interpret
That's
goes
why
back?
it's a per diem. So, yeah, if they're
diem.
gone, we won't continue.
Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 9.4.
This is for a contract with Butler County ESC for a success coordinator. This was something in our ESSER fund plans originally that we talked about, and it is obviously being paid out of ESSER. So, it's an additional social worker.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Can you just like in a real quick little version, kind of highlight what they might be doing in a general way?
They are we have students that have lots of needs in various areas, and they will coordinate with children's services a lot of times, with mental health help. They will do in-school counseling. They are the go-between. They will help families get the resources they need. They're run right.
They're Lindsay
Yeah.
for the high school. We
Yeah.
have Lindsay for the elementary, and that's all she can handle, or primary even, but she's going to be working really closely with this person.
And that's for junior high and high school?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 9.5.
The approval of the environmental club for high school students.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
I will say the supplemental was approved last spring, and I thought, wait a minute, the club hasn't, we need to get the club on there so you know. Anyway, so.
We got the account
So-
set up, it's ready to go.
Yeah, the account's all set up and the person's already hired, but here, anyway, I just wanted y'all to know, and plus, I just want approval for it. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 9.6.
Just the calendar of events.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robert. All right, before we move into section 10 adjournment, we will start with comments from the board. Start with you, Mr. Leeds.
Okay, Robert, I want to thank you for the job that you have done on the pilot program with the other superintendents, and I think it is a great step in the right direction. At least it helps keep the kids in school, as you have said, and thank you for it. And I also want to congratulate the fall sports. Not leaving any of them out. They're doing a tremendous job, and the crowds at the football game are increasing, and good job by all. And for the staff, keeping things rolling during these, again, tough times, and we thank you for all that you're doing. That's all I have.
Mr. Guido.
I have nothing.
What?
I'm gonna write
We
this
have
date
it on
down
video.
for posterity's sake. But now we can't say ditto.
Thank you. Well, you know what he said. Mrs. Stone?
I'm just glad it's homecoming, I'm glad kids can have some sense of normalcy. I think we need to do more of that. The weather's gonna be awesome, I'm gonna just say it is, because it's gonna be. Sorry about the football game yesterday, Mr.
It's all right.
Grant, that's all I need to say.
It's all right. Oh, Mr. Buskirk lost.
Yeah, we used to have a bet that whoever won, you would have to wear the colors
No,
at
that
the
will
next
never
board
happen.
meeting.
That will never happen.
So, we can always do that.
That I can promise you will never happen.
remember that.
Yeah, I lost once, I wore a black suit, but I left the yellow on. Yeah.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yeah, with it being homecoming week, I just want to encourage all the kids to get out and have fun, do their thing, but please be safe. Yeah, just look forward to the homecoming parade. I'm glad that we get to do that again instead of last year, but yeah, I mean, thank you for all your work on the pilot program. I know it'll help a lot of these kids kind of get back to what it was. I know it wasn't easy, so thank you for sticking with it and seeing it to the end. But But yeah, aside from that, that's all I got.
Okay. I will echo what Mr. Leeds said regarding the fall sports programs. They seem to be heading in the right direction, so that's a good thing.
Can we bring home the all sports trophy?
That's a possibility. I just want to win the Booster Bowl. That's this Friday. There's a big trophy. Don't let them leave here without it. We're with it. Okay. It comes here. It was something the Touchdown Club put together probably 10 years ago, and it's a mixture of the two communities. So it's a trophy with a hard hat, with a sledgehammer, and whoever wins that game gets to take the trophy home for the year. So they have it, so we'll make sure to get it back. Just tell them to bring it with them.
Okay.
All right.
All right. It is wear your gold, right?
Okay.
It's supposed to wear your gold movie.
All right, very good. And I want to thank Robert, Holly, for all your work, the teachers, the parents for your patience during these weeks while we were waiting for the pilot program. So I'm looking forward to hoping that this will get us back to a little bit more normalcy. So the quicker, the better. So with that being said, that's it. Yeah.
So my wife works in the school, and she said that this year has been really, really difficult on the teachers. So we get it, and I hate to hear that our teachers are feeling that way, but we do really, really appreciate all of the work that you all do. It's not easy to deal with a room full of little kids. Like, that would drive me absolutely crazy, dealing with a room full of kids. So what you do every single day is absolutely amazing. And with all the added stuff on top of it, I mean, we all understand how difficult that is. And I know we all five of us really appreciate all the work that the teachers do every single day. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing everything that you do every single day, all year round. Thank you.
Agreed.
So with that being said, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:49?
So moved.
Second.